Hello, everyone. We're just going to wait for people to go ahead and join here. I'm Stacy Pike-Langenfeld, president of Krabbe Connect, and I'm so grateful that all of you have taken some time to be with us today for this very important caregiver panel. A couple housekeeping things that we would like you to abide by as we go through this next hour and 15 minutes, or even an hour and a half should it last that long. If you could keep your videos off, it just helps preserve bandwidth. And it also helps with the recording. When other families watch this recording, they're not distracted with cameras going on and off. The other piece is also please remain on mute. We are going to be asking everyone to submit their questions to me directly throughout this caregiver panel to ensure that the question doesn't get re-asked and that we are asking appropriate questions. So use the chat, send your chat to Krabbe Connect, and I will ask those questions at the end when we have time for that. All right, let me go ahead and share my screen here as we get started. The first part is just going to be introductions here, and that's the only time we're going to be really using the screen. Otherwise, I will close the screen out as we have a deeper dive discussion into navigating the treatment, diagnosis, a little bit about gene therapy, and then truly just some advice at the end with regards to those families that are newly diagnosed and just starting to walk the path and or for the future of those who will be walking the path. So today we're here for experiences navigating treatment for Krabbe disease. We have been so graciously joined by 4 moms who have walked that path. And we're also joined here by Donna Schroeder. She is the new vice president for Krabbe Connect on the board of directors. I myself, I am Stacy Pike-Langenfeld. I am the co-founder and president of Krabbe Connect, and have been with this organization since inception in 2018. With that, I want to show you that these amazing moms have come here to share their experience for a couple of reasons. One, they want it to be easier for the future families who are navigating this disease. 2, they want healthcare providers to know their thoughts, their feelings, their opinions on what it's like to walk in their shoes, as well as things that need to be improved as we continue to make advancements and have compassion for those who are impacted by this disease. So as you can see, we have Allie here, mom to Emma Lynn, Alyssa, mom to Arthur, Vanessa, mom to DJ, and Janae, mom to Ella Rose. With that, I expect that we will all provide compassion as we ask questions. As most of us know, this is not an easy disease to navigate, and we are here to come together as a community because walking in this path alone is very challenging, and we are here to provide a resource for those wanting to understand the different paths that families have followed. With that, I'm going to invite Vanessa to go ahead and do an introduction of herself and her little guy.
Thank you, Stacy. Happy to be here. I hope that this panel helps even just one family in their journey. So this is DJ on the screen. He's the light of our lives. And DJ was born in December of 2021. He was diagnosed, he was caught through newborn screening panel in Pennsylvania. He was flagged at 6 days old, diagnosed at 16 days old with early infantile Krabbe disease. We transplanted him at UPMC Children's in Pittsburgh. His first transplant failed, and then he got his second transplant when he was about 5 months old, and that one was successful. Upon diagnosis, we were offered options to transplant at a couple different locations in Pennsylvania, and we were informed about gene therapy clinical trial. And now DJ is almost 3 years old and he is stable and doing very well.
Great. Thank you so much, Vanessa. We'll go ahead and move to, there we go, Allie.
Hi, I'm Allie, and I'm mom to Emmeline. She was identified with early infantile Krabbe disease through newborn screening. We were informed of two different places that performed transplants for Krabbe disease. We chose UPMC. Emma went through transplant. She got her new cells at around 30 days old. She's stable and doing well now. She'll be celebrating her 3rd birthday in December. That's about it.
Thank you, Allie. Alyssa.
Hi, I'm Alyssa. My son is Arthur. Arthur is late infantile. He was not caught on a newborn screen. Arthur was a full-term baby, and until he was about 18 or 19 months old, was developing relatively normally with some minor delays with walking and speech. Doctors were not concerned about it and kept saying that until 18 months, he's just being a boy. Boys develop these things later. And then one day he stopped walking, and by the end of the week, he could not stand anymore. And the following week, he was no longer able to be sat down without falling over. He had lost all trunk control, and so we were admitted to the Children's Hospital. And after about a week of testing, they sent off some genetic tests, and 10 days after he had been hospitalized, we got a televisit call with the diagnosis of Krabbe, and we fought to go to a facility that had treated Krabbe before, because there weren't any locations that had successfully, to our knowledge at that point, treated Krabbe disease. So we fought to go to UPMC, and it was approved. He received his transplant July 2nd or June 2nd of 2023, and right before his 2nd birthday. And at 23 days, he engrafted and was sent to rehab after he was stable. And at the 6-month mark, we got to go home, and he is doing well.
Thank you, Alyssa. All right, Janae.
Hi, I'm mom to Ella Rose, and Ella was diagnosed with early infantile Krabbe disease at 9 days old through newborn screening here in New York. And we decided to go to Duke for treatment. She received her first transplant May 1st, which made her 30 days old, but she had multiple complications and ended up needing a second transplant because her first one failed. But unfortunately, Ella passed away at 3 months old. What's different in Ella's case was her father and I were found to have some mutations with our GALC gene. I was found to be a carrier of Krabbe disease through our son's newborn screening, and my husband just had some depletions of that gene, making him what they call a possible carrier for Krabbe disease. Through further testing, we were told that he was not a carrier. Thus far, we would not have any children with Krabbe disease. Unfortunately, through a medical miscommunication, we were informed wrong, and that's came Ella Rose who did have Krabbe disease.
Thank you so much, Janae. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen here, and we're just going to do a general panel discussing kind of the paths that our amazing moms have gone through. We're going to first start out with just really navigating the diagnosis. We've understood from many families that sometimes the communication that comes across is great. Sometimes the communication that comes across is not great. And so I just want you to hear kind of some of the different stories that the families have navigated. So Allie, I think you had a pretty impactful conversation where you were told about the disease and didn't really receive a lot of insight or information. Can you kind of walk the audience through of what happened in your with your daughter?
So when Emma was about 4 days old, I received a call from a geneticist at University of Kentucky. She told me that Emma's newborn screening was flagged for a lysosomal storage disorder and that we would need further testing to tell us which one. So this was on a Saturday. That following Monday, we went to the University of Kentucky to see this geneticist. And when we got there, we were just put in a room and there was no further testing. She came into the room and she handed us a printout just from Google that told us what Krabbe disease was, and then she proceeded to tell us that that's what Emma had. At that time, we were not told that Emma had early infantile Krabbe. We actually didn't know till a little later that there was different types of Krabbe. Then we were told that only Duke and UPMC did the treatments, the stem cell transplant. And then that was pretty much it. They didn't have any more information. They didn't tell us that anything about symptoms not starting until later on. So we had no idea what was happening. And I almost kind of doubted if they were even correct on what they were telling us.
Thank you, Allie. How did you go about getting to UPMC? Were you doing your own research to get there, or how did that work?
They gave us contact info of, I don't know what you would call her. It was one of the women at the MDRD clinic. They had given me her contact info. And I just contacted her and told her what my situation was, is that I was told that my baby had this disease, and I was told that this was one of the only places in the United States that could help us. And then she done so well at guiding us from there. So 2 days after that, we made our way to Pittsburgh to begin our transplant journey.
And can you tell us how far of a drive that is for you, Allie?
That is 8 hours when your child is cooperative.
Thank you. Vanessa, I would like you to walk the audience through just kind of what you went through with the newborn screening being flagged and just kind of the emotions, right, that you were experiencing just giving birth to your first child.
Yeah, it was a very emotional week. You're not in such a great state of mind to receive news like that because, as a lot of mothers know, your hormones are all over the place that week. You're newly postpartum. In my situation, I was newly out of a major surgery. So it was a lot. And, running around hospitals and not really knowing what's going on and being very sleep deprived. It's difficult to be in a proper state of mind to fully understand the situation and know all of the options available to you, because you're not quite 100%. But yeah, so, you know, he got flagged. We got a call from our pediatrician, told us to go to CHOP in Philadelphia. We had a consult, told us to go to Pittsburgh for transplant, and we drove across state that night. We got to Pittsburgh at like 2 a.m. with our dog and 2-week-old baby. So I remember changing him in a like gas station bathroom at like midnight, and that was so fun.
And
But
he
no.
was what, 5 days old maybe?
At that point, he was just over 2 weeks old when we drove to Pittsburgh, but because it wasn't until after he got the diagnosis.
Janae, I would like to hear you talk about, you know, we've had a conversation about you were essentially well equipped in your area, right? The individual that provided you the information knew about Krabbe disease, but the next step with the transplant and information there. So you kind of walk us through what happened there, or the audience that's listening, what happened and how you knew to seek out another facility.
So the child neurologist here in Rochester, New York, did a wonderful job of telling me all about infantile Krabbe disease and explaining what the next steps could be. But it was very crucial. He must have said it 10 times, to have the transplant before 30 days of life or just at 30 days of life. So he got us set up with a local transplant doctor here who met with my husband and I, told us a little bit about the next steps of she would need chemotherapy and things. But then the conversation turned when he said 30, 60, 90 days, what's the difference of when she would get her transplant? I froze. He was talking, but I wasn't hearing any more of what he had to say. I looked at my husband and I said, you know what? We have to fight to get Ella somewhere else. She definitely cannot have her transplant here because there's no sense of urgency. And with Krabbe disease, time is everything.
You're absolutely right, Jen, and I'm so glad you knew that. And did you do some of your own research after she was identified, even though you were told you wouldn't have to worry about it?
I did.
Okay.
Even though before Ella with my son, when my son and I were identified as carriers of Krabbe disease, I dove right in, did a ton of research, and it wasn't until he's 5 now, so it wasn't until after Ella did I even know that there was a transplant option. So even with doing my own research, after we were told there was a transplant option, that's really kind of when everything changed and there was hope.
Thank you. Alyssa, sorry, excuse me. Alyssa, can you just talk a little bit about what you were seeing, some concerns with regards to Arthur, and, you know, was your voice being heard with your primary care physician, and how did you finally get to a diagnosis for Arthur?
Well, I have 2 older children. I have a 12-year-old daughter and an almost 9-year-old daughter. And so we had a little bit of a way to compare at that point. He was our first boy, but we noticed some differences between his behavior and their behavior. And so at 12 months old, he wasn't walking independently yet. He also had a very limited vocabulary, and he did not want to eat. He only wanted to nurse. And I brought it up to our primary physician, and she said she wasn't concerned about it. We'd address it at 15 months. And so at 15 months old, all of the concerns were kind of still there. Arthur was walking, but he was a little bit like pigeon-toed. She wasn't concerned about it. And she kind of just told me, well, until 18 months, we're not concerned. I don't want to refer you over to developmental peds until 18 months. And I kind of just told her that there's a year-long waiting list, and if she wasn't going to refer us out, I would find a physician who would. And so she reluctantly did. And we finally got hooked up with Baby Net in South Carolina to get him some early intervention, because at this time we were noticing some behaviors that seemed more autism-like. He really he started grinding his teeth really bad at about 18 months old, and would also kind of turn his head and cut his eyes really far to the corner of his eyes. And so those can go either with Krabbe or with autism. So of course we've never heard of Krabbe at this point. So we fought, and about a week before Arthur, I guess at about 18 months, 17 or 18 months, Arthur finally started walking independently. It was slow and steady, very like arms out, never super fast, but he was walking. But then a month later, he just stopped. And our early interventionist through BabyNet had finally got us a referral to physical therapy, and physical therapy said that they could see the low muscle tone, and that, a few sessions and he would be back on track. And by the end of the week, he was no longer able to stand. If we put him, set him up on his legs, even against a couch or something, his legs would collapse underneath him, and he would be squealing and screaming at the top of his lungs. And we had no idea what was going on. And we thought that possibly something had happened to his back or something. So we went to the chiropractor, and he felt it was something neurological. So we finally get into the pediatrician again, and she looked at me and she said that she could see that he had not been like this 2 months prior. And she was going to send us over to ortho and maybe to neurology. And as she was getting ready to walk out the door, she turned back around and said, I'm going to check his reflexes. And so she did. But when we didn't know it at the time, she checked them incorrectly. And so she thought that he didn't have reflexes because she got no reaction. And so she immediately called the children's hospital, and they wanted to see him immediately. And whenever we got over there, the neurologist checked, and they said he has hyperreflexes. And thankfully she had checked him incorrectly, because we probably would have lost all the time that we had if she had thought that he had amazing reflexes at this point in time.
I think it's quite interesting. This is very common where we hear stories where families have struggled to get to certain specialties. Even in my scenario as well, it was a gastroenterologist that noticed the low muscle tone and attributed to a neurological issue. So it's clearly something that needs to improve in the medical community with regards to low muscle tone and having it be checked out for a neurological condition. But with that, as you all have explained, you all sought out treatment. One of the questions that continues to be troublesome for a lot of families is insurance, right? So delays in insurance to get treatment, insurance not wanting to refer to the facility that you're wanting to go. And I know we didn't really prepare for this question, but I know some of you have encountered that, as I see Vanessa shaking her head. Vanessa, do you have some comments with regards to that? And how did you guys go about that? And were there delays on your end?
Fortunately for us, there were no delays. not that I remember anyway, and at least I guess maybe none significant enough to stick in my memory, but we were still on our like insurance through our employment,
Sure.
which the first like couple months of his treatment went through. And in that time, the social worker at the Children's Hospital helped us sign up for medical assistance for DJ, which so it was a big process, but did go through fine. And, you know, luckily, I don't know how it is in every state, but luckily in Pennsylvania, you know, DJ's diagnosis provides him medical assistance for life. So, you know, there were no problems for us there, and they've covered the entire transplant, and he gets his food and feeding supplies and special equipment and therapy is all covered. So
Alyssa, I know that's not the I think you've had some struggles. Can you speak to that a bit, and how did you navigate through that? And if I remember correctly, you guys were slightly delayed with regards to undergoing the transplant, right, due to insurance?
Well, we, you know, we got our diagnosis, and the neurologist who called us, she actually had told us that we had to go on vacation. We had a vacation set up for my daughter's 11th birthday, and we were going to cancel whenever we knew that whatever this diagnosis was going to be, it was not going to be good. And so she told us, go, because this is going to be your last family vacation. So we got the televisit while we were there, and she had set up for us to go to MUSC here in Charleston, South Carolina. And we were going to go there, and then she had tried to arrange for us to be transferred to Duke. She had never heard of this diagnosis either. So when we found the Krabbe families group on Facebook, I kind of asked for some guidance because everything that we were Googling was all early infantile. We had no real direction to go for late infantile at this point. And we were scared because everything that we're seeing, we're against the clock. You know, we're seeing have to be transplanted by 30 days. And at this point, Arthur's almost 21 months old. So we went to MUSC, and some other families had told us that we needed to get to UPMC, that other hospitals would be hesitant to treat symptomatic patients. And so we expressed that we wanted to go to a hospital that knew the progression of this disease, and we didn't want to be finding the information out at the same time as physicians and nurses. We wanted an experienced team to be working with our already fragile child, because at this point he's lost his motor skills in his arms. He's starting to lose his head control, and he's starting to lose interest in things around him. So the insurance did not agree with this decision. They were very adamant that we could get transplanted at any hospital, and they denied us. And so we all appealed. Our neurologist here in Columbia, South Carolina, and MUSC, they both appealed, and it was denied again. And then we had already had our appointment set up for that following Monday in May to be at UPMC, and everything was denied, and so they pushed it back a week. And I was calling every single day, like 3 or 4 times a day, asking for updates, demanding updates. And finally, a caseworker kind of called and told me, or asked me more or less, why we were trying so hard to get there. And, you know, I expressed my son is dying. And she said she understood. And she said, unfortunately, we're upholding our decision to deny your request. And I'm not a confrontational person. I'm normally try to be very kind to people. And I just kind of told her, of course you are. You're going to go to bed tonight and you're going to sit in your nice comfy bed, and you don't have to see my beautiful redheaded boy dying and not knowing if he's going to survive this, because for you, he's a chart. And I was like, for me, I have 2 other daughters that he is the light of their life, and he's worth fighting for me. And she kind of escalated it a little bit, and finally at 4:59 on Friday, it had been overridden, and we had finally got the approval to see the get the evaluation done in Pittsburgh. But at that point, after that evaluation had gone through and the doctor at MUSC had written a letter expressing that she felt it would be medical negligence if they did not approve it, everything at that point forward was easygoing. Everything was approved without any problem at that point.
Thank you, Alyssa, for sharing that piece of your story. I'm sure that's helpful for many who are navigating this journey. Janae and Allie, did you guys have any issues with insurance? Feel free to pop on and comment.
I did. We had, even to this day, we still are having trouble with our insurance company. They did not want Ella to be treated anywhere outside of New York. They wanted to choose where we went to. And I told them, I don't care if I spend the rest of my life trying to pay off any debt that is acquired for Ella. She's going somewhere else to get her transplant. So in the car we went, and it took almost a week for the insurance company to get on board. Our provider here and then one of the providers at Duke had to have video conversations with these providers who sit behind a screen and have no idea what Krabbe disease is. They call it crab disease. And it's very hurtful to think that someone else wants to decide what is best for your child. And in the end, it was after a week finally approved. But along the way, back here in Rochester, my sister would call me and say, you've got mail from the insurance company. They're only approving 7 more days, or they're only approving to cover this amount. And I still get those today.
Thank you for sharing, Janae. Allie, how about you? Did you have any issues?
Yeah. So at the time, we didn't think that there was any issues and we weren't hearing too much. But even to this day, almost 3 years later, I am receiving bills for random things, mostly the outpatient portion of it. So, like after they get their transplant and when they're stable to be out of the hospital, but they're not stable to be 8 hours away from their providers, you have to stay local, which we stayed in the Ronald McDonald House. So, anyways, a lot of the treatment that they did during that time, the insurance denied, because what they wanted to say was that since Emma was stable enough to be out of the hospital, then she was stable enough to be back in Kentucky and see Kentucky providers. And that's was the issue with our insurance, is they only want you to see Kentucky providers. And while I understand that, there is not anyone in Kentucky that can give or could or can even now give my daughter all of the things that she needs. It's not that we like to go 8 hours away. It's that that's the hand we are dealt, and we just have to play it. So when Emma was outpatient and I had to give her like IV infusions and things like that, our medical supplies had to be shipped to us from a company here close to us in Louisville, Kentucky, because insurance did not want to pay for a company in Pittsburgh to give us our things that we needed. And like everyone else has said, it's just sad that the people at the insurance company, they have no idea what you're going through. They don't have to look at your sick child. They don't have to be the one sitting here wondering how you're going to get them what they need. They don't have to worry about that. They're just a number on a screen or a name on a screen.
If there's one thing you guys could say about this scenario, because it's obviously something that's very prevalent in our community, and a lot of families struggle with the insurance piece. Would you guys be comfortable? I know, Janae, you went elsewhere, and well, all of you didn't treat within your own state. There's this mindset that a transplant is a transplant, and that if they can do a stem cell transplantation, and if experts can communicate with your local care team, everything should be fine. How do you feel about statements like that when medical providers are even having conversations with like your insurance company or Medicaid in that capacity?
I feel like insurance companies need to realize that they are more than their disease, and they deserve to get the care from providers that know what this is like and what could be, and that can help families navigate this difficult time. Because if we would have stayed here in Rochester, I don't know what those 3 months could have been like for Ella, myself, because they just don't know enough here. And that's okay not to know enough, but we need to have the leeway to choose where to go, especially with a disease so aggressive, and where time is of the essence. We do not need to be worrying about the insurance companies and why they feel the need to deny things for our children.
Vanessa?
I would also say I agree, Janae, and not all transplant facilities are created equal. Like just because one hospital does stem cell transplants, like Krabbe kids are so like it's so nuanced. Like their symptoms and the tiny little ways that they display things and are very different. And we saw firsthand at UPMC, like, a team that has been around Krabbe kids and understands and has a whole team devoted to this disease. Like, just as an example, like, these kids have trouble with temperature regulation. So, even just going from one department to another, like if you go to, the PICU and you're with a nurse that's not particularly educated with Krabbe disease, and, your kiddo's running really hypothermic and like very low temperature, right? Which DJ always did, and that was his normal because of his disease. But so it's just so important to be at a facility that understands that these kids have a different normal, and what triggers that. And so no, like not all facilities are created equal.
Before we move on here a little bit more about treatment, we move on a little bit about treatment, is Allie, you had a really good story I would love for you to share about the conversation you and your husband had with regards to treatment, when you're told about treatment, and how you both process that information, because this is something that's real, and that this is something that happens within couples within their own home. Would you mind sharing that with our viewers?
So when we were discussing treatment, we didn't necessarily see eye to eye on that. It was just a given for me. Like, we were going to, there was no questions. It didn't matter what we had to do to make it happen. It was going to happen. It didn't matter if we lost our home, our car. It just didn't matter to me. Like, none of it mattered. But to him, he just thought, not necessarily that he didn't want Emma to have treatment, but he just thought about, like, how am I going to be out of work for that long? How are we going to pay our bills? Like, what's the point of her having this treatment if we don't have anything to bring her back to? We don't have a home, we don't have a car to get her to her appointments. What is the point then? And now I understand that, but at the time, it was just like tunnel vision. Like, all I could see or think was, she needs this. This is what she needs. She's in this world and we need to do everything we possibly can to keep her here. So that's where it just kind of differed a little bit. Eventually we worked it out. There was a time where he did have to come back home, and I stayed in Pittsburgh with Emma. He was there for like the first 3-ish months. I was there for the last 3 on my own with her. But we did what we had to make it work.
Thank you, Allie. And that's such an important note to say with regards to how families navigate. Some will stay their entire time there. Some have to split it up. It's really just whatever works for the family and the couple navigating their child. Some have other children. Like, I know, Allie, you talked a little bit about that too, as well. If you could mention that it was a struggle leaving your other daughter at home.
Yeah, so I do have, she's 6 now. She was 3 then, almost 4. So we had to figure out a plan for her, because at that time, because of COVID, the Ronald McDonald House did not allow siblings to stay there. And then also the hospital did not allow siblings to visit, to come up to the transplant floor. So the best option that we could come up with is for our daughter to stay with my sister. And actually, she didn't even get to stay in our hometown. My sister at that time lived in Columbus, Ohio. So she was staying with my sister in Ohio, and she stayed there for the first 5 months, and then the COVID restrictions lifted a little, and they allowed her to stay the last month with me at the Ronald McDonald House. But during that 5 months of us being apart, I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep it together.
No, you're okay, Allie. Take your time, please. This is an important piece that you're going to be sharing.
So during that 5 months that we were apart, my daughter changed. That is probably my biggest struggle through the whole process, is that I felt like saved I saved one child, but I broke another. And I feel like I had to give up one to save the other. And that is the hardest part that I struggle with. We still struggle to this day. Gabby actually has high functioning autism. So that makes it even a little more harder, but we struggle with abandonment issues still. Our bond is not like it used to be. I hope that we can get it all back, but that is something to consider when you do have other children. Is that it doesn't just, it's not, you don't have, just that one child to think about. And another thing that we kind of struggled with, along with that, was the healthcare providers kind of made us feel like Emma was our only priority. Like, our other daughter, like, she's healthy, so she just doesn't matter. it doesn't matter that you're losing out on half a year of your other child's life, that your children are losing out on half of a year of bonding. And while it was necessary, it was the hardest part for me. That was the hardest part.
Thank you, my friend, for sharing that such impactful piece of information. I know Alyssa and Janae we're in a similar spot. If you would like to add to that, Alyssa or Janae, I know, and Ellie, I'm not sure if you mentioned it was during COVID, if that's changed now, that they're allowed to stay at the Ronald McDonald House, now that we're outside of COVID. So, but Alyssa and Janae.
For me, with Ella being in the hospital for 3 months was extremely difficult. Fortunately for us, my son got to stay at the Ronald McDonald House. But due to other reasons, it was hard for him to be able to come up. And there was some times where I had to say, not today. And other times when he did come, it was very hard for him. He was in, said a few things to me, went and saw his sister, and then he would leave. So that was hard for me. But we struggle today with David doesn't leave my side ever. So I'm very thankful that I was able to explain to him today why it was important for me to come share our story and his sister with the rest of the world. And he is a little different. He's a little older, and it was hard for me to feel like I was choosing Ella, but then he reminds me that I did this for them. And I tell him all the time that I'm sorry, for a little while I had to choose your sister, but he reminds me that that's not what I did. He says all the time, Mommy, you did this so we could have forever with Ella. And even though we don't have her for forever, we spent her forever with her.
Wow, those are some beautiful words you shared, Janae, and we are so grateful that we were able to hear that. We just got some hearts up there on the screen. Alyssa, I know you have 2 children as well that you are navigating. Want to speak to that?
So our circumstance was also a little bit different there. My daughters have always been homeschooled. And so they have always been with me all day, every day of their entire lives. Even I worked at a church, and they were with me every day there. So when we got the diagnosis, we really, the doctors at UPMC were very clear that we needed to take their perspectives in mind before we proceeded with anything, because of the disabilities that we were told Arthur would have, that it might affect them. And whenever we sat down and we talked to the girls about it, they were both very adamant that they would resent us if we didn't fight for their brother. And so they knew that we were going to have to leave them. We live about 11 hours from Pittsburgh. And so we not only had to leave them behind, but we had to send them to separate households. One was with my mom and the other one was with Michael's mom, because Michael's mom's a little bit older, and my mom also was trying to work, and so it was just too much. So we bought iPads, and every day, Monday through Friday, while we were there, because my kids are homeschooled year round, in between doctors coming in and lab draws and medicine and everything, I was on a Zoom call with one of them or FaceTime with one of them pretty much at all times, teaching them and then dodging to the other one and working with them. And it was really hard. Our oldest was going through puberty at the time, and so she was without me for that, and she was with a family member at the time that wanted to coddle her because she thought that it would be the best way to help her work through those emotions. And so then Emma gained like 60 pounds while we were gone for that 6 months. And so then she went through some body issues there. And we also came back to two completely different children. Our oldest was very cut off and had kind of gotten to the point that she felt that what she was going through emotionally would be too much to add while we were gone. And so she held every thing that worried her or scared her or all of those insecurities to herself. And then our youngest became very baby-like, she has severe separation anxiety. Even me walking out to the car, she has to follow me out to the car. She has to watch me walk to the mailbox, and in the morning she has a bathroom right beside her room, but she won't go to that one. She walks all the way across the house to ensure that we are still there. Unfortunately, they knew the circumstance and they knew that we were leaving to save their brother, but it doesn't change that even though they were rational enough to understand it, they didn't understand, I don't think any of us did, the emotional consequence that we were all going to be facing being apart. Because even through FaceTime, and even though we were watching movies together, sharing screen, and we were there, not physically being there with each other, it just changes you.
Absolutely. Alyssa, thank you so much. The physical part of parents being able to touch and hug and just reduce their anxiety when it's at its highest likely is just very challenging. It's something that's very prevalent in the rare disease space, the sibling effect. And so it's something we need to continue to work on and provide more resources and support around that as well. Before we hit Allie up with some just overall how she walked through gene therapy, if each of the moms could just say how long they were inpatient, and then how long that they've been home, just so our viewers can understand how long that they are potentially could be away from home should they walk through transplant. So Vanessa, I'll let you start, please.
Yeah, so we were inpatient for a couple months in the beginning. Then we were outpatient, but we were still not home. We were outpatient away from home. And then second transplant, we went back inpatient. So and that was until he was about 10 months old, 9 to 10 months old. And then he was transferred via helicopter back to CHOP so we could be closer to and actually live back at home once he was stable enough. And then he was inpatient at CHOP for another month. So technically there was a little bout of time that we were outpatient, but still not at home. So if you count the whole time that we were away from home, I'd say it was about 10 months from the time he was 2 weeks old to 10 months old. And and we've been home ever since, and he'll be 3 in December.
Thank you. Janae, I know yours was short-lived, but I still think it's impactful. Like the day you went, at what week were you at Duke Medical Center and when you returned home?
So with Ella, we stayed at Duke for 3 months before she passed away, and then we took some time and she passed away in July. We didn't come home until mid-August.
Glad to hear that. So you are away from your home as well, which is, how far is that for you guys, Janae?
I think 10 hours.
Okay. For about 5 months then, is that accurate?
But yeah, about 5 months. Yeah.
Alyssa?
We were gone for a total of 6 months to the day from home to the beginning of transplant. We were inpatient for a little over 100 days on the oncology floor, and then we were transferred to the inpatient rehab for a month. And then we were outpatient for about 2 months before at the Ronald McDonald House before we finally got to go home a week before Thanksgiving last year. So it's been about 10 months that we've been home.
Alyssa, and how many times did the siblings come out, the girls?
They came once.
They came once. Okay, thank you. Allie?
So we were admitted to the hospital when Emma was 9 days old, or no, she was 2 weeks old. We were admitted and we stayed for about 2 months. Then we were outpatient for a couple of weeks and she got an infection, a pretty bad one. So we were admitted back for all of that and we were in for another about a month and a half. And then the rest of our time was outpatient, but we were in Pittsburgh still away from home. So altogether we were away from home 6 months. So Emma was 6 months old by the time we got to bring her home.
And you've been home how long now? Is Emma going to be 3?
She's gonna be 3 in December, so 2 years.
Okay. Great, thank you. And since you're the only one that has walked through a clinical trial, we're just going to ask a couple questions around that because I know families are going to be navigating that going forward. And we're not going to talk about obviously any of the outcomes or things of that nature because we don't know that information. But some of the questions that come to us are what concerns did you and your husband have in evaluating whether to do the clinical trial or not?
So, obviously is that it's an experiment. You have no idea what it will actually do, if it will help, if it will hurt, what the side effects are, how bad they are, if it's worth putting your child through just to see if it would work. And then the site where the clinical trial is 8 hours away, so we had to be considerate of that also. So yeah.
So the first going through the process, you have to, I believe, meet a coordinator, right? And you sit down and kind of walk through a lot of paperwork, isn't it? And kind of talk a little bit about that process. What was that like? That had to be kind of overwhelming, and there's a lot of fine print, I believe.
Oh yeah. So it's a big, huge packet, and they sit and read it with you and go over it with you, answer any questions you may have, and you and your child's other parent both have to sign off. Obviously, I don't know how that is if there's different custody, but anyways, if you're married or whatever, you both have to sign off on it. And you have to agree to it. It probably took a total of like 2 hours to go through all of that.
And so once that was done, were you then moved into like essentially testing, right? To see if your child is a candidate. So what did that look like, and what kind of tests was she exposed to?
So, it's basically the same testing that they put you through to confirm Krabbe diagnosis. So, and like the testing that they do annually to see if there's any progression. So there was a sedated MRI and an ABR hearing test, a spinal tap, neurocognitive testing, eye testing, um, like a physical therapy type testing. Uh, I think that's close to it. It took about 3 days to get through all of that. And the biggest test of all to see if you're eligible is they have to test you to see if you have the antibody of the adenovirus.
Correct. And so for those of you listening, the gene therapy is delivered through a capsule. The capsule is a virus. So it's encapsulated in what they call an AAV virus. And if you carry that virus in your body, we naturally produce those. And the older we are, the more likely we have those titers. Your body is taught to attack them. And so should you test positive for those, your body will attack the therapy, and the therapy won't be helpful or useful. And so that's why that test is done. Allie, once you found out that your daughter was a candidate, how long was the process to get the therapy?
Not long at all. They were ready whenever we were, basically. So whenever we were ready to travel and to be there, they were ready for us. We went there and got settled in, and we ended up doing the MRI then because we didn't want to put her through sedation if she were to have the antibody and not be able to do it. So I didn't want to put her through sedation for no reason. So we went and we did all the sedated things like the MRI, the spinal tap, the ABR, and then she was admitted to the hospital one evening, and then the next morning was when the gene therapy took place.
Since then, you know, with any clinical trial, they talk to you about follow-up, right? The importance of follow-up. This, as you noted in your first few statements, this is an experiment, so it's very important that families follow up when they are in a clinical trial. So what does the follow-up look like? How long do you have to be away from home, and how often do you have to go?
Okay, so they like for you to be close by for 5 weeks after they give the gene therapy. So we stayed in Michigan for 5 weeks after the therapy. And then I don't want to say this for sure because I can't remember everything because we are 1 year out. But I think it was something like for the first 3 months, they have to see you every month. And you have to go through all of those tests every month for the first 3 months. So that's really tough. And then after that, it starts to space out a little bit more. And now we're 1 year out. So now we go every 6 months. So we don't have to be back there until January.
So that first year is tough. I mean, you're talking another 5 weeks. You've already spent 6 months away from home when she first went through the first treatment. Now, and essentially a little over a month, and then every month for a period of time, as well as continued checkups. Does that those follow-ups continue for how long, Allie? Do you know?
When you sign up for it, you commit to 2 years, and I mean you are allowed to drop out at any time you want. But they did mention that after 2 years, they will ask us to continue to follow up for, I think, 2 more years, because I think the minimum follow up for like something like this to be FDA approved is you have to have 4 years follow up. But you are allowed to drop out or to decline any testing at any time. Like, this is all up to you. You're not required to do anything, and it's not paid. You don't get paid for it. Um, so yeah.
So it's a lot. One of the things that I think is important to note too, when you're going through a clinical trial, and if you decide to drop out, uh, it becomes challenging, and also important to know that, though when you do that, your local facilities aren't going to be able to understand gene therapy like the clinical trial side is the number one, the safety importance of your child continuing to be checked up. The other piece too is really around if we want an FDA approved treatment, like Ali said, it's really important for those who are participating to continue to follow up to ensure that more families get access to therapy, because when it's FDA approved, it becomes widely available versus just a small subgroup of families or individuals impacted. So thank you for that, Ali. Do you have anything or any you want to say about the clinical trial outside of outcomes and things of that nature? I mean, they've supported, they pay for you to go out there in that capacity, and you're getting the therapy free under the
Yeah.
trial.
I mean, I would like to add about the like the expense part. Obviously, none of this is billed to your insurance. They do 100% pay for all the treatments, like the lab work, all the testing, all the medical bills. They do pay for that. Um, but you are reimbursed for everything else. So, if you want to stay in a hotel, they do book your hotel for you. If you want to stay in an Airbnb, you have to pay for it yourself, and then they will reimburse you for that. Gas, you get a mileage reimbursement. So they calculate the mileage from your home to the site, and then you get reimbursed that way. So when you're asking, like, if it's out of pocket expense, I mean, kinda it is, because you do have to put forth the money in the beginning, and then about a week after your appointments, you get reimbursed on like a prepaid debit card.
Thank you for adding that. I was not aware of that piece of component, and that's very helpful information.
Mm.
We're getting close to our 5:15, and I wanted to make sure that each of our amazing moms get to say some closing remarks, whether that's, and so one of the things that I've asked them is to kind of speak about some piece of advice. And since Allie's been talking, I'm just going to go to someone else for the moment. I'm gonna hit up Janae, and one of the pieces that I had asked her to speak about is, what advice would you give medical providers who have a child newly diagnosed with Krabbe disease in their care?
I would encourage them to reach out to another medical provider who is very familiar with Krabbe disease. And also, when speaking to families who are newly diagnosed, um, to be sensitive in what you say. And when you say something, make sure you actually know what you're speaking about.
Janae, one of the things we talked about earlier, and you made a super impactful comment in one of our prep calls, was about the sensitivity around normal, and to use a different word. And I really liked that word. I would love for you to share it, if that's okay.
It was actually one of the other moms that
Typical?
helped me.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Well,
So
yeah, go ahead.
it's just, so either we use typical and then say for Ella, or um we used to call it like special for Ella, something that she does that's
Yes.
special to her. So each child um with Krabbe disease will have some similarities to ones before them. and then others will have new things for them. So we just say, it's just Ella.
Yes, I like that. And I love the term typical. I mean, what is really normal? I think we all know that with Krabbe disease, these children likely are not going to be on a normal trajectory. So using the word typical just shows compassion for our those impacted and for the families navigating the disease. Vanessa, what advice would you give for families who are, you know, maybe have a long-term hospitalization like you did, and any resources or support tools you found that were helpful?
My husband is my best support tool. No, but I'm grateful that I have a significant other who, you know, left their job and threw himself completely into caring for me and DJ entirely, and still does every day. But I would say, you know, don't put a timeline on anything. I think we did that a lot up front, like, well, you know, asking the caretakers and or asking the doctors and the nurses, you know, well, how long does engraftment usually take? How long do parents usually spend in the hospital? How long does this take? How long does that take? And I really wanted like statistics, and I wanted so many numbers because I wanted something that I could like put a number to and almost feel like I was like grasping for something that I could rely on. And DJ was like, no, I'm going to have a lot of different complications and you're not going to know what's coming next. And I'm going to go to the PICU 8 times, which was a record for one inpatient stay, apparently, in that on that floor. I don't know if anyone has passed that record since then, hopefully not. But yeah, so don't just try to take it like one day at a time, try to take it 1 minute at a time. And just know that like anything can happen, and like try it really just if anything, the whole experience and the diagnosis makes you a much more, well, patient person. It makes you a more grateful person. It puts uh, things into perspective. It reminds you of what truly matters. Um, and like, you know, my outlook has completely changed. Like on diagnosis day, I was like, you know, I can't handle this. Like I'm not like prepared for a child with special needs. Like no one is. No one goes into it like, you know, but and now almost 3 years later, you look back on it and it's not like I don't have a special needs child. I have DJ and he happens to have special needs. Like it's just your whole perspective flips. Um, so
I love
that's all
that about,
and I if these are our closing statements, then I just
yes,
have a couple other words of wisdom that might
yes,
not
please share.
necessarily relate to being at the hospital for a long time, but they might a little bit. Um, Definitely ask for help from your community, lean into your support system, reach out to the Krabbe community, but take it in stride because in the beginning it's a lot to listen to and look at. So you have to limit your Krabbe exposure in the very beginning and take it at your own pace. It was a lot for me in the beginning, but lean into that community, ask for help. Don't be afraid to, you know, start a GoFundMe if you have to, or whatever you got to do. Um, and also while you're going through the transplant experience and, or even before then, or if you choose not to, it's fine. And whatever is right for you is right for you and your family. And, but the greatest thing is you are the best advocate for your child. And so just know your options, be involved in their medical care, understand what's happening, because if you don't, you can't truly advocate for them. So ask for help, take a break, but also try to be present.
Thank you
And
so
that's it.
much, Vanessa. Those are amazing. That's absolutely amazing advice. Allie, how about you? What would you give for your advice for those families navigating newborn screening diagnosis.
Do your research, find the best that you possibly can for your child. Don't take the first advice that you hear to heart, because if I would have, we would not have made it as far as we have that we have. And also just take a deep breath. It's hard to imagine, but you can get used to anything. Like, this is my life now. Like, I can't imagine it any other way, and this is just normal. Like, people want to say, "Oh, you're so strong. Like, I don't know how you do it." It's because I'm a mother, and we are who we are whoever our child needs us to be. And who my child needs me to be is a little different than who your child needs you to be. And so one day, diagnosis, treatment, all of this will be a long time ago memory. And it's hard, but it's not the end.
Thank you, Allie. Alyssa. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I
It's okay.
accidentally minimized whenever I was trying to unmute. Well, I have a few things. I guess first, whenever I talk to a newly diagnosed family, the first thing I always tell them is not to think about a year from now, not to think about a month from now, even a week from now. Everything is day by day. And that's how we handled everything from the moment that we were admitted into the hospital. Engraftment, while we were looking forward to it, it was surviving the day or surviving the moment. We literally lived by that. We didn't think about what we were having for dinner, even. We were surviving moment to moment. In the beginning of this, Arthur, and just like I'm sure Allie, Vanessa, and Janae, you guys probably all had the same issues. Arthur had never really been sick, and so we never really had to advocate for him. And so whenever they came in and they were like, is he nauseous? Is he in pain? We were like, I'm relying on you just as much as you're relying on me for this information, because we have no idea. At this point, he's lost his ability to communicate, and I don't know what this means. And so, just like Allie said, you have to be present. You have to learn how to know your child, so you can learn how to advocate. But I will say that if you proceed with transplant, Michael and I had each other, and we had people in the community and everything that reached out. And we had a great support system. But I will say that in reality, for myself and for Michael, our biggest support system, and really the only reason that we felt mentally stable and that we felt that we survived any of it, was the nursing staff and the support staff at UPMC. They were amazing for us. If we were having a hard day, they came in and they would play a card game with us, or they would sit and talk with us for a time. They got to know our children whenever they were on FaceTime and joked around with them. We have some nurses that video called us on Christmas to wish us things. So whenever you go there, wherever you decide to go, that's your family for however long you're there, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, a year. Those are the people who are living it for you, because whenever you come home, they know what you've posted. Your family and friends, they know what you've told them. But the support staff at the hospital, they were there. They know how you felt, and they were there to offer those tissues for you. They were there to help you change linens, and if you just needed that break, to hold your child so you could run to the restroom, or bring you a bottle of water whenever you needed it. So I know that for me, it was a very hard thing to to feel like you were inconveniencing somebody. I didn't want to ring that bell, unless I absolutely had to. But after a few weeks, I realized that those nurses, especially, they became our best friends. They were who we could talk to about everything. And I think it's important to utilize those relationships as much as possible while you're there, because they are there for you. And especially on oncology, they don't just show up for a job. They are there for your children. They come to their job knowing that that's probably one of the hardest floors that they could possibly work on, but they are there for you because they love your children.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. Those are great feedback and great bits of advice. I did get a question in. Thank you all for sharing. As a mom who didn't get a choice, I'm so glad you did. Your advocacy and resilience is inspiring. Looking back, would you have done anything differently? And feel free to anyone chime in.
I think for me, what I would have done differently was lean more on the hospital staff that was there to take care of not only Ella, but myself. And I learned that it's okay to lean on others and to reach out when you need help. And it's okay to show your emotions and to really ask for help when needed. Because in the beginning and for a very long time, I didn't do that. But then certain situations started to happen and I felt okay, but I wish I would have done it sooner.
That's really great feedback, Janae. There's so much that happens in those first few weeks, months, that it's overwhelming. This is like trauma, and families who have navigated rare diseases like this struggle with post-traumatic stress disorder, and it is okay for us to speak about that. It is okay that we're depressed, that we have anxiety. Many and thankfully, the greater community does not have to walk this path. So just know that there are resources and help out there. Anyone else would like to comment on that statement? Yes, Melissa.
I don't know if there's really a lot that I would necessarily do differently, because, you know, our timeline was so significantly different from the other three. But I will say, when we got the diagnosis, Michael had a much different journey at the beginning than I did, because I was responsible kind of for getting us there, and for kind of being the pit bull of the situation, while he was trying to grieve the process. You know, he was kind of took over for the care of Arthur while I was just trying to get us there. And I think the biggest thing is, at this point, whenever you get this diagnosis, you don't have to be nice. I know that sounds bad, but in a lot of situations, you can't. I got to the point, I didn't care if you saw that I called the insurance company 12 times today and you've given me the same information. I will continue to call, and I will continue to go if I don't feel like you're getting me where I need to, the information that I need, or where I need to go fast enough. I'm going to have to go over you. And unfortunately, that's kind of the situation that you have to do whenever you're working with insurance companies. Be the biggest advocate that you can, and be a mama bear, because you have to, because you have a child that's relying on you not being a nice person to make things happen for them.
I think I've won. I wouldn't change much. Obviously, I wish it didn't take 2 transplants, but that was out of my control. That's nothing I could have changed. And I think for me personally, this is a bit of like a vulnerable statement, but I kind of wish I would have let go of pumping and breastfeeding earlier in the process than I did, because I felt like giving my child breast milk was like my last, it was like my last Hail Mary of something I could do to try to heal him. And I was like, maybe my body can heal him. It was a ridiculous thought, but in the time, I truly felt like maybe it was helping him in some way. And the nurses and so many people told me, like, don't, like, do it if you want to, but like, don't do it to the point that you're stressing yourself. So he ended up getting some volume every day of some breast milk for until until just about the time that we left the hospital. I think my last pumping session was when he was almost a year old. And like, in some ways, it was like that last thing I was holding on to. And in other ways, I think looking back, if I could have just let go of that earlier in the process, I would have gotten more sleep and I would have had one less thing to stress about. So that's the only thing I think maybe I would have changed. But
That's a great feedback, Vanessa. Thank you so much for that. That's very interesting. All right, I do have another question. Not a question, but just here to say that as a mom navigating a new journey with my 3-month-old daughter, this webinar has truly resonated with me. Thank you all. Thank you to all of you for sharing your journeys. And I just want to say thank you too. I mean, we are at the end here and we've gone 15 minutes over, and I want to thank the viewers who are still here with us, even though we've gone a little long. We're really just about helping those navigate the journey and not feel alone, because I know too, it's been some time. My daughter would be 23. She passed away at the age of 2. That it's not easy. And the challenges that continue to linger within couples and families are there, because it's a very traumatic experience walking that path. And so I just want to go ahead and share some takeaways for you as we close out today or this evening. Because these are some of the things that we hear a lot about, some families that hear about a newborn screening diagnosis and don't really take it seriously. There's actually 2 screens that they go through before they contact a family. So when a doctor really does tell you that your child's tests show signs of Krabbe disease, it's really important that you quickly follow up. Doctors usually do give as much information as they can about treatment, but it's also a good idea for you to do your own research in the event your doctor may not be informed, or there might be some new resources or treatments out there. Doctors are also navigating a lot. They can't know everything. There's 7,000 rare diseases. And so I truly believe that they're doing their best to help families when they are diagnosed. However, sometimes they don't know all the information. Families you do get a lot of information, just as Vanessa said, in the first few weeks. And sometimes it does help to talk to a nonprofit or another family who can help you just better understand things and really focus on what is really important during those first few months. Duke University Medical Center and the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center know a lot about Krabbe disease, but if you can't travel, it is possible to obtain care in your state with help from an expert who can guide your care team. Going to another state is not always feasible for everyone. So please know that although the families here decided on these 2 centers, that there are others that treat locally. Krabbe disease is not an easy journey, so do not hesitate to ask for help or accept help from others. And I just want others to know that here we do not have any judgment on your choice. Krabbe disease is still, at the end of the day, very challenging to navigate, and that a decision to treat or not to treat is really based off family and cultural, religious, and other moral values. So that play a role. So here we really just want to ensure families have all the information and are informed. So with that, I don't believe there's any other comments in the section. It sounds like everybody enjoyed our your comments and sharing your stories. So Allie, Alyssa, Janae, and Vanessa, thank you so much for being here. This has been recorded, so this will be an educational resource for families newly diagnosed. So if you hear someone diagnosed with Krabbe disease, you'll be able to point them to this. It will be on our website within the next week. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your evening. Take care.